Good afternoon. This is a regular meeting of the Cameron County Commissioners Court, Tuesday, July the 24th, 2007. It is now a little after 5:30 p.m. As we do all meetings, we'll start with an invocation today given by Pastor Gregory Fish.
Let's pray. Oh Lord our God, I want to give you thanks for creating such a beautiful world to live in, and I give you thanks for this county and for blessing us richly with many blessings. Thank you for this meeting, and I pray that it would be a productive one, that you would give wisdom and discernment, that you would unify everybody to make right decisions, all those participating and all those present, that if there exist any disagreements or division, that things would be agreed upon for the benefit of the county. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Father Jerry, could you lead us in the two pledges of allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, under God, individual. I want to get that right. Thank you, Father. Yeah, I know it. We have one public comment from Father Jerry Frank regarding the Health Services District.
I want to read a letter to you all, to the Judge and County Commissioners. Dear Judge and Commissioners, as you know, the Rio Grande Valley Health District will become a single county health district after August 31st, 2007, since Hidalgo County will no longer be a participant in it. According to state statutes, however, the health district will cease to exist after August 31st unless Cameron County recontracts with it. Should you choose to keep it alive, I have a suggestion regarding the new contract. The law which created the health district clearly states that it shall administrate the county's indigent health care revenues, as well as other funds it might leverage on behalf of the health care needs of the poor. I suggest that you now authorize the health district to administrate the county's indigent health care funds and to exercise direct supervision over the indigent health care system and personnel employed by the county. Even though your health district was created to look out for the health care needs of the indigent and to ensure fairness for all health care providers, one hospital in the county is attempting to circumvent the health district and is proposing to garner and manage all your health care funds for the indigent. Be assured that the health district does not oppose the hospitals leveraging federal and state upper payment limit funds. However, we certainly should have a major role in helping to shape the proposed contract in such manner that the common good is protected and best served. Why have you ignored and excluded the health district from your deliberations with the hospital? Don't you recall the recent backlash that reverberated throughout Brownsville when that hospital's veiled attempts to monopolize Medicaid funds backfired? I urge you not to let yourselves be pressured into a contract before an opportunity or forum is arranged to permit all the hospital administrators, physicians, pharmacists, healthcare providers, and concerned public to take a good, honest look at it. Proceeding with transparency and openness, you can achieve a fair and fully deliberated consensus that will benefit the entire community. I surely would appreciate a prompt response to this letter inasmuch as time for any resolution of these contractual concerns is rapidly winding down. Sincerely, and I'd like to give you a copy of this letter.
Thank you, Father, and I can respond right now. We have been meeting, or representatives of Cameron County have been meeting with the hospital in question, and I think I asked the last time that we had a meeting to try to schedule something with members of the Health Services District and Valley Baptist. Has that not occurred, Yvette? Okay, then we need to next week set up but again, we've had this issue on our agenda numerous times where it's been posted and the public, and no one from the Health Services District has come by to visit with us at a regular meeting. But what I'd like to do is, if it's okay, try to schedule with your folks, Valley Baptist folks, maybe another workshop. Will another week give you time to do this, or, I mean, we are running out of time, but even though we have some time, but where are you in your I guess in your conquest with Valley Baptist?
Judge, Commissioners, our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday morning, so we'd be more than happy. I'm sure Valley Baptist would like to send representation as well. So we'll be able to
contact them. I think your agenda's already been posted for that. I mean, the health services, as we spoke about, they need, I don't know if they need to be involved in the integral part of the negotiation, but I think they need to be involved to the degree that they feel is necessary to agree. But I think we need to, that's the Health Services District meeting that's for Thursday. Is that correct?
That's the
the Valley
Cameron County
Baptist. Then which is the one that
representative.
I got where you have a Health Services District meeting?
August 2nd.
Okay. Then you all work it out as to when you want to put a workshop item on a Tuesday or a day that's convenient for all the court members, and if we're ready for an action item that same day or the following week to discuss this. This is transparent, and we want to. I'm still waiting to hear, I guess from you all as you're developing these negotiations, all the downsides, if there are any. So we need to hear that. So invite the Health Services District to the Valley Baptist meeting. Whatever. I mean, obviously you cannot do a quorum, but whomever wants to participate can participate. When we have a workshop to discuss it with the hospital, make sure that the Health Services District board members know about it. That way, if they need to post a meeting, they can, 4 of them can show up if they'd like or if want to participate. Can we do that?
Yes, sir. We'll work with the Valley Health Service District and the members of the committee.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Did you make any comments? No? Okay. All right. Item 2, consideration and adoption of a resolution of the dedication of 8.23 acres of parkland within Pedro P. Benavides Park, formerly known as the Brownie Road Regional Park along the shore of Resaca de la Guerra, as open space for perpetuity as required by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department.
Excuse me, Judge, Commissioners. We had, this is the second resolution that we bring before the court. The first one was, excuse me, I'm out of breath. First one was for 15 acres. Parks and Wildlife came back and told us that in our original application that we had committed 23 acres for open space. So we went back and we got the engineering department to go out and survey the additional track, which is along the shore, along the Resaca. It's the brush area. So we're going to dedicate that 8 acres. It's on the, I believe, on the west side of Brownie Road for open space. And it's part of the requirements that Parks and Wildlife is asking.
Is this in reference to a grant or something?
Yes, ma'am. It is. It's a follow-up to the grant that we got for Brownie Road, and it's just to close it out.
And that area is really not usable for anything other than,
It has,
just
it
like
has
a wet area.
vegetation and trees
Correct.
and so on.
Move to approve.
Second?
Moved by Commissioner Gatsa, second by Commissioner Tamayo to approve the resolution.
Thank you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Consent items and travel items. Are there any items that any member of the court wish to pull out to discuss separately? I'd like to pull out item 9, which deals with the contracts with Allied Waste Services, and item 10, the concession agreements in Isla Blanca Park.
Was that
Anybody?
9 and 10?
Yes, ma'am. Any other items anybody would like to pull out? Hearing none and sensing none, do I hear a motion to approve consent items 3 through 11 and travel items 12A through 12D with the exception of items 9 and 10?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Commissioner Benavides, second by Commissioner Tamayo. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Executive session, we have one item, should go fairly quickly. Confer with Commissioners Court Legal Counsel concerning Cameron County versus BFI Waste Collection and others, cause number 2005-07-3905-A, and BFI Waste Services of Texas LP versus County of Cameron and Red River Service Corporation of Texas, Inc., case number B-05-279, for discussion on status of case and possible settlement pursuant to Code Section 551.0711A and B.
Move to go into session.
Moved by Commissioner Gatsa. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Benavides. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in executive session. A motion to come out of executive session by Commissioner Tamayo, second by Commissioner Gatsa. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Item A, confer with Commissioners Court Legal Counsel concerning Cameron County versus BFI Waste Collection and others. Do I hear a motion to acknowledge report of counsel?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Benavides, second by Commissioner Gatsa. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Commissioner Tamayo was not present at the meeting. She disappeared. Okay, item consent part. Well, you know, I think, Yvette, you wanted item 21 to be pulled out separately for you had to catch a flight or a boat or something? Item 21, discussion and possible action regarding the Cameron County Department of Health and Human Services prenatal program.
Judge, Commissioners, good evening. I just wanted to provide the court with an update from our last meeting last Tuesday. Since last Tuesday, the Cameron County Health Department representatives met with some of the hospital representatives in the joint meetings. We've met twice since last week. We met on July 18th, which is on Wednesday, and again, we met yesterday. Now, at this point, I believe that we're in a position where we would like to meet with the hospitals and the volunteer physicians so that we can give the court an additional update next Tuesday. So that's kind of where we're at with the project.
Okay. So you just need an acknowledgement and permission to do that, or?
Yes, and I would like to recognize the two hospital officials that are here. We have David Hanley with Valley Regional. He's the Chief Executive Officer, and then we have Glenn Bales, who's the Valley Baptist Medical Center
And they're actually sitting next to each other.
Chief Financial Officer.
I
Yes.
guess it was the influence of the two priests that were here, I guess.
They've come together as a team.
Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate you all being here. Okay.
And we hope that at the next meeting, we get a report in which things will be worked out so that this issue can be resolved.
Yes, Commissioner, we hope to resolve it as quickly as possible. And
Okay, and do I hear a
hopefully-
motion just to acknowledge Ms. Salinas' report? Moved by Commissioner Tamayo, second by Commissioner Gatsa. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. We can go back to the two consent items that were pulled out.
Number 9.
Item 9, consideration authorization to execute contracts with Allied Waste Services. I just had a question regarding the language on all of them. It says, and this is the gray shaded area, it says beginning on April 11th, 2007 through April 10th, 2008, or until a subsequent bid is awarded with an option to renew once or twice for one additional year each time based on Commissioners Court approval. I guess I'm trying to figure out what all that means, whether it's once or twice. Tell me what that means.
Well, Mike, did we have an option on that bid that went out?
Commissioners and Judge, as in all bids similar to this, it would be for 1 year with an option to renew at the end of the anniversary year for one additional year based on the court's approval. And if at the end of the anniversary year, it has an option for a third year.
Okay, I think that if we haven't learned our lesson regarding the insurance contracts, this is very vague, and so that's why I'm asking, what does this, it may not be a big deal if it's only trash collection, okay, but It is a contract. I'm just trying to figure out what does this mean? With an option to renew once or twice, does that mean that this expires on April the 10th, 2008, and then we can opt to renew for 1 year and then renew for another year? So this is potentially a 3-year contract? If we exercise all the options, is this a 3-year contract?
Exactly. At the end of 2008, if the court so chooses, they can elect to renew it to April 2009. If they choose at any one of those anniversary renewals to rebid, we can also do that.
Okay, but assume that we're coming to April 10th, 2008, and the court decides to renew. At that point, someone's going to bring it to us to renew it for 1 year, and then at the end of '09, another year?
At the end, exactly.
Okay, so then, why does the language have to be so difficult? With an option to renew once or twice?
Are you looking at the contract?
I'm looking at the service agreement, this little...
Gray area.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Judge and Commissioners, the contract, if you have it before you, I scratched out the term because I told them they had to put the exact language that was in the bid as for the term, and so that's why it's written that way up in the gray area. And in addition to that, I added that the county gets to terminate this agreement with 30 days notice, but that's not on this one, it's only on the originals over there in that same gray area. But the wording comes from the actual bid, the wording that you're reading from the gray area,
right.
It comes from the bid.
Well, so then...
And it's exactly like you said, it's a 1-year contract.
With an option to renew one,
and then
option
after
to
that,
renew another
if the
one.
court wants to do it again, so it basically allows for a 3-year if the court wants it to be that way.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But every year it comes back to the court if you want to renew it. But the most you could renew it in the end would just be 3 years.
Okay.
Maximum.
But we're sitting here in July, and the date of this agreement was April. Is there a reason why it's taken 3 months to get this back to us for approval?
Yes, what happened is Dilbia met with I guess he was a salesman, and Dilbia made some changes to the contract. It went back to their people, and then they just got them back to us recently. But they started services in April because Waste Management was pulling out.
Okay, so
after we bid
basically, we're already into this contract, even though they don't have a signed agreement, right?
Right.
So they're basically going on a month-to-month without a signed contract. Okay. Just let the record reflect that it's clear that this is a 1-year contract with an option to renew for an additional 1 or 2 years. Okay? Is that correct?
I wasn't worded that way.
Well, tell me how to word it, because that's what I'm reading here.
It's a 1-year contract with an option to renew at the end of the first year for the second year only, and at the end of the second year, an option to renew for the third year only.
Okay. Well,
Unless the court decides differently.
Unless the court decides to end it.
yeah, once or twice. Okay. I just want to make sure that we don't have a problem and say, well, we thought it was 1 year, is it 3 years or 2 years? So this is the maximum this can be right now, the way this is written, is a 3-year contract beginning April the 1st of 2007.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. All right.
I have one question just for clarification. And we don't use Red River for these accounts. Could you explain to us why?
Well, they submitted a bid. What we did was went out for bid for the service, and Red River did submit a bid, but they weren't the lowest.
Okay, and we don't have to, I thought we had an agreement that they had to collect in Cameron County.
In the rural areas, is this considered a rural area?
Arroyo City, Talmay Park, I mean, at least that one. I don't know.
So I think when we read the original contract, there was a phrase in there that said we had to go out. It was only for residential services, and it wasn't for commercial.
No commercial.
I just don't want to have Red River come back and say, you know, we have an exclusive contract with the county, we just got out of executive session on one of those issues and muddy the waters up even more.
Well, let me ask you then,
But it was just residential with Red River, not business, am I correct?
Well, they do,
That's my
they do
understanding.
commercial also.
No, but our contract.
Our contract was just for residential, and if we wanted to ask them to do commercial, they would, but we advised how we had to go out for bids on the commercial.
Because when we bid out the original, we didn't bid out, it was just for residential, we didn't include commercial services in that one bid.
So, when you say, and this is, I can see it apart that we provide the services, but the businesses provide their own service, right?
That's correct.
Each one of the businesses?
For example, Schlitterbahn, they have their own Sea Ranch Marina, Sea Ranch Restaurant, they have their own service, and they get serviced by Waste Management.
Like Dolphin Cove Street, what, is that just the location of the bin?
That's the location of where the bin's at. There's several locations within Isla Blanca, we have Andy Bowie.
Do we require each one of the vendors that we have out there to have their own bins?
Yes.
So
Now,
aside,
whether they go with Allied or they go with Waste Management, Red River, or whoever, that's their...
It's their choice.
so every vendor, as part of their contract, is required to have trash service?
Correct.
But it's their choice as to who they choose.
That's right.
do I hear a motion to execute the contracts with Allied Waste Services for solid waste services? Moved by Commissioner Benavides. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gatsa. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Item 10, consideration authorization to execute the following concession agreements in Isla Blanca Park, Beach Snack, Lerma Pavilion, and Jetty's Bait Stand, Jetty's Loop. I just have a couple of questions, Javier, and I'm just not sure how to read these things. Do you have a copy of the leases?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you go to page 2, we need to, on the termination of the agreement, this should be September 30th, not September 31st.
Okay.
Of 2012. If we go to page 5,
You don't think in 2012, September's going to have 31 days?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not according to my
You
knuckle,
have to check.
my knuckle count here. If you go to the annual percentage payment, I guess I'm a little confused as to what we're going to do. It talks about an annual report of gross receipts at the end of the relevant calendar year. This is on the second paragraph. And this is, I think this is an override. If 10% of gross receipts is greater than the total amount of monthly fixed rentals. You see that on page 5?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is this, are you going, and if you are going to prorate it, then I don't know if there's, I didn't see language in here, but at the end of December 31st, because these contracts start on October 1st, are you going to prorate it, or how are you going to apply this 10% of the gross receipts or greater? Because I mean, this is not going to happen because they're entering into the very slow months. So how are you going to address this particular issue? Or are you going to wait till December 31st and then do like a 15-month deal? And if you're going to do that, then we need to change the language in here, because the concession agreement is not matching up to this calendar year issue. So I don't know how we're going to do this.
Okay.
Well, why don't you use the same calendar year as your concession agreement?
Well, I mean, that's fine. If you want to change, then we don't use a calendar year, you use the fiscal year. And maybe that's what you ought to change this from, instead of January. I don't know where this comes from, but obviously someone is not looking at these concession agreements very closely. But maybe this ought to be a fiscal year starting October 1 to coincide with the concession agreement.
Okay.
Okay? And this applies to all of them. I'm a little confused. We have the first concession agreement that Let me find it. Oh. The first one calls for a monthly rental of $750. So keep that number in the back of your mind, okay? The second concession agreement calls for a monthly fee of $625, okay? So one of them is $750, the other one is $625. With me so far?
Yes.
Okay. When you get to the deposit for the higher monthly rental is $337. The higher rental, the deposit is $500. Okay. I'm sure there's a reason for that. Can you tell me what those reasons are?
Well, I don't know the reason why we collected that, but what I have in here is that we retained the existing $500 deposit that was collected back when the original concession was executed.
Did the rental fee increase?
The rental fee with this concession, yes.
Well, let's talk about the $500 concession agreement, the one that's a deposit. If the rate increased, why would not the deposit increase? And then is it supposed to, I guess I'm trying to figure out where the $500 comes from in relation to the monthly fee. Normally, a deposit like this is normally 1 month's fee or 2 months, whatever it is. This one, maybe, was the fee $500 a month with the original concession agreement?
No, I believe it was, if I remember correctly, it was like $350.
A month?
A month.
Okay, so for this particular concession that was paying us $250 a month, we had 2 months worth of fees, correct? Okay. Well then, where did that change, and why are we not doing the same thing? If the monthly fee went up, why are we keeping the same deposit of less than a month and not the 2 months fee like we did originally? And then if you go to the first one, it's the same thing. It's $337, which I guess that's I don't know, it's not even half of maybe it is half of the $750. I'm just trying to figure out what reasoning we're using in terms of getting deposits from these folks. Why this one person gave you 2 months and then we didn't adjust it when the fees went up, and this other one, it's not even a month deposit.
Right.
So what is our policy in regards to deposits? Is it 1 month? Is it 2 months? What are we doing?
I know when we on the new concessions, that's a question I had for Mark, and I think Mark was asking for like 45 days, so it was a month and a half of whatever the rent was. But on these, I left them, and I just included that we would retain whatever the deposit was. We can increase the deposit if necessary.
Well, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just trying to find the theory behind why we're charging, someone that's paying us a larger fee per month, $163 less in deposit that the other person is paying us a higher fee. I don't understand the reason. If we went out to rebid and reconcession, we got new fees, then I would think that the deposits that we're asking the concessionaires to give us should be commensurate with the new and improved fee.
So everything would be new?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I would think so. And I'm not asking you or telling you what to do with it. I think y'all need to go back and revisit that and determine what is an acceptable deposit if they breach. Is it 1 month? Is it 1.5? All I'm saying is that we need to be consistent in how we're charging our concessionaires these deposits. And I think the deposit is tied to the monthly fee of some sort. On that same page, on the security deposit, on the 4th line, it talks about this deposit is not to be construed or treated as an account to cover or offset the fixed base fee payments. I'm assuming that when you go back to the 10% override, that if there's a shortage, you're not going to use the deposit money to cover that shortage. Is that what you mean by that? Okay. If we go, my last comment, on page 7, when it talks about the insurance. On the 8th line, the way I read this, the concessionaire is supposed to tell us if they're changing the insurance coverage or if there's any cancellation. That's the way I read this. Is that fairly accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So theoretically, a concessionaire could cancel the insurance and we not even know about it. Or, that's what I'm reading here. If that's not what happens, then tell me where I can read where it tells me that.
No, but I'll tell you what happens. The insurance agent or broker, what they do is they send us a notice of termination if it is terminated, because since we're a additional insured on their policy, they send us a notice that it's either been terminated, or if it's 15, 20, or 30 days late or whatever, then they send us a notice automatically.
Well, then why would we have language in here telling us, if the insurance company is going to give us a notice, then why would we put language in here basically going after the concessionaire that he or she is responsible for giving us the notice? Or are we getting noticed by both parties? Now, let's say that the insurance company gives us a notice that they're going to terminate. Does that automatically terminate the concession agreement? Or does the owner have to provide us with that information as well?
It could be, they would be in default if they did not carry the insurance or have a current insurance policy.
Okay. So just so I understand then, and you're sure that the insurance companies with all these concessionaires will notify us if there's any insurance coverage that's being changed or terminated?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And you're sure about that?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I can't sign these agreements until we reserve or resolve these issues with the deposits, unless the court wants to do it like that and go with the language the way it is with no changes. But I think that there's some inconsistencies here, and that's what's gotten us into some problems with when we go out for these concession agreements. There's got to be some consistency in terms of amount of deposit, this fiscal year versus the calendar year. There's fundamental things, but those little fundamental things are what seem to be getting us into some trouble at times.
Judge, I can bring these back, make the changes.
You can bring them next week.
Bring them back next week.
So the main thing we're looking for is some uniformity in the manner in which you word for the deposit. I guess it's sort of like a ratio according to what they're paying. I don't know.
The same for all. What's good for one is good for the other, not one differently than the other.
Do you have an internal policy? And I know the answer is probably not, but do you have an internal policy regarding the amount of deposit that you're going to be asking these concessionaires? Was there language in the RFP that was going to require them, or is that part of the negotiations as well?
It's part of the negotiations.
Okay. Without putting too much of a burden on the concessionaires, I think at a minimum, they should be able to provide a deposit of at least 30 days.
30.
Anywhere from 30 to 60 days deposit, I think would be fair. And I'm fine with 30 days if you want to do that, or 45 days, or 60 days, whatever the court's desire is. But we have to have some consistency.
Equally for all.
Okay.
Well, it should be based on, equally I would assume that you mean 1 month of their fee.
Right.
Okay, or 2 months, or whatever it is. You all may want to get with Mr. Sepulveda and come up with what's normal. I will tell you that normally it's more than 30 days. Normally it's about 60 days. But if Mark had back then recommended 45 days, I would not be opposed to compromising at the 45-day deposit. And they need to understand that it's not a last month's rent. It's a deposit.
Right.
Okay? Can you do that? Then bring it back with those changes. So you're also going to change the language on the calendar year, fiscal year versus calendar year. Do I hear a motion to table item 10?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Tamayo, second by Commissioner Benavides. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Thank you, Javier. Item 15, budget amendments, line item transfers, and/or salary schedules.
Judge and Commissioners, included in your packets, there weren't any additional ones. There was various line item transfers for different departments, moving funds between line items. There's no
You recommend?
any additional revenues or anything other than the grant on the last.
You recommend?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Gatsa, second by Commissioner Tamayo. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Item 16, approval of minutes for May the 29th, 2007, and June the 5th, 2007.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Gatsa. Do I have a
Second.
second by Commissioner Tamayo? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Item 17, approval of claims. Rob, I know you passed out
There was some additional claims.
some additional claims.
The ones that were passed out, Rob?
Yeah, do I hear a motion for approval of the county claims?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Benavides. Do I have a second?
You got my extension. Second.
Second by Commissioner Tamayo. Any further discussion? Please note my abstention on the two warrants, one to Brownsville Independent School District and Harlingen Waterworks.
And I have an abstention on warrant 00184-744 to the medicine shop.
And I have an extension on 0018-4791.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Item 18, discussion regarding the fiscal year 2007-2008 budget.
Judge and Commissioners, I had placed this item on hoping that I would have had these certified values earlier. I just received a copy of them before the meeting from the auditor's office, and I put a copy of it in front of you. The only thing that's missing is the page that actually has the new values for the new construction. So that I should get tomorrow from the tax office, and we'll be able to provide that to you.
Was it faxed into them or not?
No, actually, they receive the tax rolls from the appraisal district for all the entities that they collect for, and they're separating it out, and they should get it to me tomorrow. They said tomorrow morning. This copy was actually mailed, just these pages, to the auditor's office, and they provided me a copy. So these are the values that we'll be working with to calculate the effective and rollback rates. Hopefully, my next Commissioners Court meeting, I should have those numbers for you, so they can be published, and then we'll know exactly what revenues we're working with.
So just for discussion purposes, if we take the 13,349, and compare that to the 12 million or 12 billion?
Billion.
Billion.
Big numbers.
Does that, no, that can't be right.
It's like 9.48% increase, right?
Yeah, but is it,
That's not-
the increase about 1,319,000? I don't have enough zeros on my little deal.
Yes,
Yeah, that is 1 billion.
on the 1.3.
Okay. So if you divide that by 100, does that give you the 13 million, right?
If you were to take,
Or I guess tell me what the new, I know you don't have the new.
Page that's missing.
Yeah, no, the page that's missing is the new revenue, but tell me just what the increase in the tax values are with everything. I think it's 1 billion, right?
well, what has also changed is if you look at, and I didn't calculate this, but the freeze taxable portion value in 2006, it was 929 million, and
What
it
page are
actually
you on,
dropped.
Javier?
What page
It's
are you
actually on page
185?
41 of 117.
What,
What's that?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4. The
185?
fifth page,
well, there's a number on there, 185?
41.
181,
That's the 2006,
or 41.
yes, that's the 2006, the last supplement, because the values have changed since
Oh, I see.
actually last year, because they're doing adjustments.
What's our tax rate? 35?
30, just under
34.
35.34891. So the freeze value actually dropped from the 929 million
Why
to the
would
915.
why would that happen? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that I don't know. It actually, from the preliminary values that I had received, it's actually different. And the only way that I can think of is, not for this total though, but say if people sold their houses that actually qualified for the freeze, and then they sold it, so then it goes back on the roll, and then it goes up to the new value. But that's the only thing, or
Yeah,
someone passes away.
But everyone that comes up that is retired and over that age.
Yeah, they would have new
qualify
people
automatically
qualifying for it
freeze.
at the new rate, but I don't know why it dropped so much.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
But like, on page, well, actually, on the very first page, it tells you that there's still $10 million worth of valuation that's under review, by the board, and maybe that may have something to do with that also.
But
I'm
10
not
million
sure.
is not even
Yeah.
like 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah, but maybe that's what happened, and I'm really not sure. Like I said, I just received them today, so I haven't been able to.
We're really guessing here. What's-
Yeah.
The number we work from is a net taxable value, and then you take away those.
Well, actually, the freeze adjusted taxable value
Uh-huh.
it's what's used to calculate the revenues, and then you add back, if you look at the bottom on the left-hand side, where it says the approximate levy, it tells you the frozen actual taxable value, which is the $2.7 million. You add that back to your tax revenue, and that gives you your available.
Well, if you just take the freeze adjusted taxable for '06, and you take the same number for '07, you come up with a difference of $1.3 billion, okay?
Right.
So the equivalent, if you apply our tax rate to that, that's about $4.6 million in additional revenue. Or is that number not right?
Well,
In total?
In total
Everything?
revenue. Yeah,
Increases in appraised values?
If you were to take the current tax rate and apply it to
correct.
that and add back the freeze to the general fund, you'd generate approximately $3 million, $2.9 million in additional revenue at the 94% collection rate. That's assuming that all the other tax rates stay the same as far as, the portion going to road and bridge or to the debt service or
Okay.
police.
But I think that you need to
that's on
provide...
this total value.
Yeah, that number to us, because that's the number, well, as we've talked, I know that there's been, we did look at the tax rate, not only as a total, but also how much of it is going to the INS general fund and the road and bridge. I know the court members will appreciate this, but I think Commissioner Gatsa has quite thinking about maybe we could shift a half a penny from the general fund over to road and bridge to generate another $500,000 for road and bridge. But at the same time, I'm looking to see if in fact this number is a good number, and we're going to set aside, let's say, $1.8 million for employee raises, then whatever's left over is what we have to appropriate. But we also have to factor in that we're going to lose $500,000 if we shift the half a penny from general fund over, if I'm going too fast, tell me.
No.
From a half a penny from general fund over to road and bridge.
Correct.
Okay, so I have to take
Assuming, yeah,
$500,000
if you-
roughly off of that.
What's that?
Assuming, depending on what tax rate you're going to adopt, yeah.
Correct. Well, right now,
you
I
can
don't.
always-
Assuming the same tax rate, but
Yeah.
if I have suggested, I really want to look at that rate, because I don't think that, I as one don't think that we need to be keeping the same tax rate unless we absolutely have to when we've got appraised values that go up. Okay? I'm not going to hide behind the fact that, well, we kept the same tax rate and everybody feels good, because no, appraised values are going up, people's taxes are going up. And that's something that we as a court have to really sit down and see. If we can't do it, we can't do it. That's okay.
But we also need at what increased value versus new.
And that's what,
value.
and that's what's going to have, because
As soon as I receive that.
as we went through the budget hearings this morning, I think one of the presenters indicated how fast Cameron County is growing. But to me, the growth in the county is not inflation, and it's not increases in appraised values. That's not the growth. The growth is new business, new construction. When you've converted, cotton fields to subdivisions, that's the growth. That's the real growth, not internal growth in terms of appraised values. So that's the number that I'd like to see. What is actually new growth, new monies, because that theoretically, that should be what we would spend, and not rely on appraised values and hide behind the tax rate, because I don't think that that's right. If we can't do it, we can't do it. At the same time, we have to factor in that our bridge system, may or may not come in at budget, and we also have to take into consideration that we have to start rebuilding our fund balances, our general fund balance. So we have a lot of obstacles and challenges, but as soon as you have that number, they'll get that over to everybody, so they can start kind of looking at it.
As far as on the bridge system, the revenues I've received so far on just the tolls, this doesn't include any of the operation, the concessions or the interest. The actual budget for next fiscal year, for what I have right now, is a decrease in tolls of $763,000 from this year to next year. All things being equal, expenditures and what have you, the county's share is a decrease of $515,000, $500,000.
See,
Yeah.
So we're starting off basically in the hole.
Correct.
In terms of that, with $500,000. That's what we have to have, all the pieces to this puzzle, so we can make a good decision in terms of this budget. There's going to be a lot of things that we will be able to do, but one of the things I think this court is committed to is and I really haven't discussed it with anybody, but I think I've discussed it with you, trying to give every employee, every full-time employee, including grant-funded employees, $1,000 raise. Everybody the same amount, okay? And the reasoning for that is, I know it kind of hurts those employees that are in the upper scale. But if you give a 3% to somebody making $100,000, that's $3,000. If you give somebody a 3% that's making $20,000, it's $600. So, a gallon of milk costs the same thing to the guy making $20,000 does somebody $100,000. So, if the court wants to pursue that, I can have you look at that. Unless you all have other options to do, if you want to maybe do it where, we're only going to have X amount of dollars to be able to provide salary increases, and I think to be fair with everybody gets the same amount of money, as we do that. If you all have other alternatives, please share them, with us as we go through this process. But I think that's equitable. I know it hurts the big shots in the county, but really we're out to help, those folks that are making, $20,000, $23,000, $24,000, $25,000. So that's just food for thought for you all, and I'm sure that if you have other alternatives, please feel free to share that with us. Okay.
You can always use a percentage also. When you go to a higher percentage for those individuals that are making less. And I think once we know the number that we can work with for that amount, we need to look at that. It might be that folks that make $25,000 or less can get an 8% raise instead of just $1,000. It might be more, just to kind of bring up the lower paid employees.
Well,
we all know that today.
Yeah, if you all have a recommend, just get it to us. If you have a recommendation like, from up to $30,000 you get X, from 30 to 50 you get X, from 50 and above you get X.
I think a simplified manner is the 1,000 for everyone.
That is because the higher you go, the poor guys up the scale, you may end up owing us money. So I think that would be a nightmare in terms of developing those salary schedules for everybody. That's why if everybody, just have you had everybody across the board, you add $1,000 to the slot. And I want to make sure that the slots or the employees get that $1,000. I don't want to leave it up to the elected officials to distribute. I know that's been talked about before. You give it to everybody like that, and just see how that number is. Okay?
Yeah, I've spoken with the health department also on the ones that have the most grants, is the health department and juvenile probation.
That's slowly disappearing.
Yeah, the grants are
Now,
disappearing,
as we get back to
with that.
compensation, we've had discussions in the past about, we know that I think Commissioner Gatsa mentioned minimum wage went up today to $5.85. I'd like to see us, and we've talked about it before, doing a minimum wage of $8 an hour, full-time and part-time employees. So somehow you have to factor in this $1,000 thing, you know, somewhere. I don't want somebody
Where
on top
are
of
we on
that.
that right now?
Actually, the numbers that I've received,
I don't think-
doing the $8 is not very expensive.
Right.
I believe, the WIC department, and the information I received, we haven't been picking up increases for them in the past, and since their contract doesn't renew until September 1st, they're not sure on their funding. We would have to, for some of their employees, make up the difference to get to the $8, because they do have some
Well,
part-timers who do that.
we need to make
But-
sure that grant employees
Right.
get the same, treated the same. I mean, they're doing the same job that somebody that's non-grant, and they shouldn't be penalized because they're on a grant. Now, I don't know how you're going to do it just yet, but let's say someone's making $775, you know, and then you take them to the $8, it's going to be the $8 or $1,000, whichever is greater. You follow me?
Yeah.
Okay? Now, I don't say, well, we took somebody $8 and heck, they would have been better off getting a $1,000 raise. You follow? And that's going to be a little bit challenging for you, but you shouldn't have that big of a problem with that, right?
It'll take, when I get the salary schedules for
Okay.
all the grants, yeah, I can figure
Javier,
that
do we
out.
have a lot of employees that are earning less than $8?
Not full-time, there are no full-time employees,
It's
or I guess
mostly
permanent
part-time.
part-time. They're mainly, they're part-time employees. I guess the one question I had there, as far as extra help, that's seasonal, you want that applied to that also, or not? That's a little bit harder
What
for
do
me
you
to
mean?
calculate. Well, like,
I think
he's
that when we talk
election-
about, I think when we talk about employees, it should be full-time employees to the county.
Well,
with-
Part-time employees that work year-round,
$8, but don't give them the $1,000 raise.
because we have some.
yes, we do have part-time employees that work year-round.
Seasonal,
So,
you're talking about
Like
the ones that
elections,
work in the
elections office,
That's
I think they
seasonal.
pay some of them between.
Yeah, no, I'm talking
7,
about what they call part-time
Extra help.
permanent employees, whatever that is.
Right.
I just don't think it's fair that you pay somebody, that you don't pay a part-time person $8 an hour. Number one, it may reduce turnover at some of these part-time slots. Just see what the numbers look like. I don't think that, I don't want to go to the level where we're giving part-time people, you know, a $1,000 increase. You may want to prorate and say, well, if they're half-time, give them a $500 increase, something like that. I don't think that they should benefit.
Yeah,
the same
individuals
as-
that are in a slot.
Yeah,
per
in a
se.
slot.
In a slot,
You know, I don't know how many.
part-timers.
I just don't, I probably don't think it's right.
Can you do a matrix with the employees and where they're at?
I can do a matrix with the salary schedules, yes, not what they're actually getting paid.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do
But,
that.
you know, that would give you what
Yeah.
they're getting paid, you just
Mhm.
do simple math, and that'll get you the numbers.
I think the number we're talking about, Javier, is doing a 3%, see what that number is, and that number, we were going to divide it by the number of employees. That's one
Whatever.
step. And see what that number is, and then take what it would be to give all full-time employees a $1,000 raise. And then go to the part-time, or though, you know, make sure everybody is at a minimum, part-time as well. And I, as one, want to do that for the part-time and full-time, a minimum of $8 an hour. But does that make sense? It's not hard.
But on the $8, it's either or, whichever's
It's
greater.
either or, correct.
You know, Judge, talking about the part-time, full-time employees, I know that Marcelino has several employees that he's had on board probably for at least 2 or 3 years. And, they are part-time, but when they get put on there, it's full-time. And in all fairness, these people have, families and they need, the benefits of working with the county. I'd like to see if we could, and I know we depend on Marcelino to do a lot of work, everywhere, and he stretches his people as much as he can, but in all fairness to those people, I'd really like to see them come on board full-time, and make sure.
Well, that's up to Marcelino to, when he makes his budget presentation, to ask for that. And, maybe he doesn't need all these full-time people. I don't know. Marcelino, I think if you're going to plan on making a budget presentation, you need to come up with, with that. I don't know really what,
He's scheduled for next week.
Oh, you're scheduled for next
It'll come
week?
up at his presentation, that's what I,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
Because,
But the
he may
budget
not
hearing-
need everybody to be full-time. Now, aren't there part-time people that receive county benefits?
Yes,
Okay? So,
there are
do
some.
your part-time people, Marcelino, receive county benefits? In terms of, they do?
No.
Or I don't know.
Excuse me, the individual, I don't want, they're not part-time per se, they're extra help in the sense that they've been brought on to work all these various projects to where his department is doing, the mill work or the finished work, say for the Levi's building or for the,
So they're like,
but they've been here
Temporary?
for,
They're temporary,
a year, 2
temporary
years.
and not permanent.
Correct. They're temporary.
For the temporary, but they've been here for quite a while.
Yeah, they have, because we've had projects for the past 3 years.
One of the questions that I would like answered at some point, I've only been here 7 years and I still have yet to get it answered, is how do we choose what part-time employee has full benefits or doesn't? Because I know that we apply that rule loosely to different folks in different departments. I think that we need to be consistent in how we provide part-time jobs with full-time benefits. If we're going to do it for one, I think we need to do it for all equally. I don't think that we can pick and choose individuals and say, okay, you're anointed with full-time benefits, because that's not fair to the other person that Marcelino might have in his department that's part-time that doesn't get those benefits. So I think we need to look at that aspect of what's occurring already in the county and see.
Is it because the temporary help is the one that's not getting the fringe benefits, or do we have?
Correct. If they're classified as temporary, and they usually don't fill a slot, they're just paid out of extra help because it's going to be on a temporary basis. And Public Works has the same issue with the Colonia program. They brought on some people to do these projects, and they're just getting paid. They're not getting benefits because it's going to end,
when the job
6 months
is over,
or a year, whenever it's over.
Are they
Same with
W-2'd or 1099'd?
They're
They're
1099.
W-2'd, aren't they?
I think they're 1099.
No, we don't need
1099?
Yeah, there's,
Rob?
yeah.
Rob, do you know off the top of your head?
They're W-2'd, yeah, they're W-2'd.
So, we do have a policy that was
30 hours?
32 hours.
32 hours?
32 hours. You have to work in excess of 32 hours in order to,
And so that's
get
the policy.
benefits, but it's for a permanent position. If they're working less than that, and it's supposed to be
Is it being
temporary.
followed, okay?
Well, yeah,
That's the
something
question.
else. Yeah.
And who's supposed to be keeping track of that?
Well, if they're in a slot, when if the original slot is approved, it's, at least the ones that I've been involved in, it's either with or without benefits, and the court makes that call.
And see, and I don't think that should be an arbitrary call.
No.
I think that should be part of a policy that we, if someone's working 32 hours, then they're entitled to the benefits. If they're not, then they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, as much as people need benefits, you just can't do it for everybody if they're just temporary, or you choose to give them the benefits while they're employed, and then once you don't any longer need the temporary help, they lose all the benefits. And you can do that as long as they're working with us and they're working 32 hours, then they're entitled to all the benefits, even if they're extra help. But the problem that I find is that once you create a slot, man, it's real hard to get rid of it.
And you also run into the issue, and sometimes with, I guess, with the employees, is because if they're getting benefits, they're gonna have to contribute to the retirement. And so if they contribute and then they leave and they want to pull that money out, they're gonna get penalized for that. To whereas if they're not, they're getting paid that full amount, and not getting that 7% deducted from their check.
Right. Well, yeah,
So-
they end up netting more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, there's, I guess, pros and
Benefits.
cons, yeah.
Okay.
But
Omar
Marcelino,
Salinas?
as far as you're concerned, you'll have your presentation next week, so that's
Okay.
when you will bring that forward.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you. Thank you, Justice. Any other question?
You'll tell us your needs.
Okay, thank you.
Do I hear a motion to acknowledge Javier Villarreal's oration on the budget? Moved by Commissioner Tamayo, do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Gatz. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Item 19, consideration approval to request RFQs for a Cameron County medical examiner. Pete?
Judge and Commissioners, you should have a draft copy of an RFQ for a county medical examiner. As you all know, we've got a contract with Dr. Salinas out of the McAllen Mission area to do our autopsies. We had talked to Dr. Farley about possibly her coming in August 1st and assisting the county. And then we had also met and talked to Dr. Kloss about him coming in September 1st. Dr. Kloss had a conflict during the month of August, so that's why he couldn't start August 1st. But once he would come on board September 1st, he would give us enough time to go through the process if what the county wanted was to establish a medical examiner's office. This RFQ would allow the county to consider that option. We would put this out and see what type of response we get. And I'd also like for the court to approve of us publishing this in the San Antonio area, in the San Antonio Express News, and see if we generate any interest from that area. Now, some direction that we would need from the court, and talking to Dr. Farley, she can come in on August 1st, but she wants us to transport the bodies to McAllen or to Hidalgo County. And so I don't know if we just changed July the 1st, and I don't know if we ought to change again August 1st, and then change again September 1st. On September 1st, when Dr. Kloss will come on board, he will utilize the facilities at Valley Baptist Medical Center. So I don't know if the court wants to consider the option of just staying with Dr. Salinas through the end of August and not going through another change, or changing to Dr. Farley and then changing again to Dr. Kloss. But the purpose of the agenda item is, for the long term, if we want to consider a county medical examiner's office, then, we can put this RFQ out and see what type of response we get.
Pete, when we were looking at this, there were a couple of different things that we considered. And Dr. Farley today is when she called and she said she could start August 1st. But I don't know if we want to create chaos with our JPs. We finally had them last week have a meeting with Dr. Salinas. They got to meet him. Each one of them was present except for Linda Salazar, who had a medical emergency that day. And they were pleased with the service that he would be providing and had been providing. Dr. Farley is willing to do them, but we'd have to transport to Ceballos Funeral Home in McAllen instead of Elizondo in Mission, which is not much of a difference. The cost for doing the work is exactly the same. It would be the same contract. I don't know if we want to entertain that. What I wanted to make sure and do with this agenda item was the request for qualifications should be, I don't think that we ought to put a date on there. I think we ought to just put ASAP, and the position is open till filled. If we get someone in to come do the work that is willing to move on this, we ought to start negotiating and doing what we can to attract them. There's been 2 other calls that I've received indirectly about interested people that are forensic pathologists that are seriously considering changes, in coming to the area. So I think that there's interest. We found out Webb County, what their budget was for that department is significantly less than what we're spending today in operating our contracted services. So it might be that the costs that we had been looking at could be brought down some by doing this. But what I would entertain this court or would like for the court to entertain is to possibly look at developing this and moving into this direction on October 1st. Come the budget, hopefully, if not, Dr. Claus will be in place and he is willing to help us for at least 6 months, okay? But if we could move on this and have someone in place, we could just move into this process, hire the secretary, hire the deaner, and hire the medical examiner, and have that office that I know our DA needs to start working with on cases. It's a little inconvenient, and we appreciate the tolerance from your department, Ms. Villalobos. But these folks are not easy to find. They're difficult to find, and the opportunity exists for us to do something if we move in this direction.
Well, my concern, David, and certainly this isn't my turf, but in speaking to the JPs, they were concerned about the cost due to the fact that there's, what is that examination besides the autopsy, something that can be done that law enforcement asks for? Or?
Like an inquisition to see...
Right, and that Mr. Salinas did, I guess, is he a doctor?
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Salinas, okay, hopefully he is. But that was their concern, that it would be very costly, that we would be doing autopsies when we didn't need to, because of the fact that he did not do this other examination.
Yeah, well, last Wednesday after Commissioner's Court, the following day, the JPs met with Dr. Salinas and with his secretary, and he explained to them why he did what their requests were. He says, if the JP sends me a request for an autopsy, I'm not going to do a visual observation. I'm going to do an autopsy, because if you send me someone that you have a question about, it is my duty to make sure that we go in there and determine the cause of death. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sending them to me. Right.
But isn't there sometimes, Mr. Villalobos, that you don't need an autopsy?
Well, you have different styles from different forensic examiners. You have some that may have better qualifications and are able to view a body differently than someone who feels more comfortable making incisions. And so you have Dr. Farley is more credentialed than Dr. Salinas, and so Dr. Farley advocated cost savings through visuals on, for example, she would state if they sent her a deceased person that was in their 80s and they wanted an autopsy, that she would perform just a visual. And if she didn't see any signs that required any further examination, that would be a minimal cost to the county. If they sent somebody that was in their 40s or 50s, then obviously a visual wasn't good enough, so she would pursue it further. So I'm not sure if Dr. Salinas is using a full autopsy on the person they send in that's 80, that's 90, that's from the hospital. So different pathologists have different reasons for that, and that's why we were real comfortable with Dr. Farley. And really, you had mentioned not switching, and what we would prefer on that is if you had a contract with Dr. Farley on an as-needed basis for the county, so that if we had a death that was extremely difficult, that met her qualifications, we already had something in place to send that particular decedent over to her, like, for instance, a baby or something along the lines that maybe Dr. Salinas couldn't help us on, or Dr. Claus couldn't help us on, that we already have something existing there that we could send her under an existing agreement rather than have to come back and create one.
So, like a referral or a consultant.
That makes sense.
Exactly. And until we can get ours off the ground. But really, a lot of the costs, from my understanding, is going to be on the investigators, because once we create the ME's office, we take that authority from the JPs to declare who needs an autopsy, and we put that into the ME's office, and the ME's office needs investigators that go out to every death in the county and determine whether an autopsy is needed. So that's where you get the personnel that's required to do that. We may be able to get away with 2 to 4 people, but it's going to depend on putting it together. Okay.
Well, she says she would be available on the 1st of next month for us if we needed her. And we can talk to her, and I'm sure she's, because her issue was, just send them to me in McAllen and we'll take care of them.
And unfortunately, we have the 2 to 3 a year that are babies, and she is a specialist on that, and we need that specialty in order to garner the conviction, because it's very specialized, and we have several that we have now that she actually comes in and helps us at trial, even though someone else did the autopsy. So it would be helpful to us to have
To have her there.
Yeah, I think
even
that's
if we don't
important.
use her on a daily basis, just to have something in place.
Have her available
Right,
and under contract.
right.
Well, right now, the motion is to,
There's no motion.
the item on the agenda is to request RFP, so, Commissioner, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I'd like
Do
to move to do
Okay.
that.
I have
Second.
a motion by Commissioner Gatsa, second by Commissioner Tamayo, to request RFQs for a medical examiner. Any further discussion?
The only other addition that I would like to add is that we have a commitment from Valley Baptist when we start using their facilities to upgrade the facilities to what whoever comes in to take over that position will be, to make them comfortable. There have been discussion about 3 or 4 different items, and I know we reviewed them the last time we met with them. There were, I think, 3 things that they had mentioned that they would like to see replaced. Valley Baptist said that they had no problem in replacing those items and cleaning up an area of their morgue that one of the doctors.
Once we agree, we have an
Once we
agreement.
agreed and add a full-time person, okay. We don't want to ask them to do it without a commitment
Right.
of using their facilities,
Right.
because that would not be fair. Okay?
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Item 20, consideration approval of budget revisions for administration building renovations, 3rd and 4th floor.
Okay, Judge and Commissioners, you should have in your packet information regarding the construction cost for the renovation. If you all recall, last December, initially what we were going to do is remodel the 2nd floor in the judicial building and the 3rd floor in the administration building. And the cost to do that was $554,000.
How much?
$554,000, and that's doing it in-house with building maintenance. Now, about 2-3 months ago, that plan changed, and what we're doing now is wanting to renovate the 3rd and 4th floor of the administration building. So the cost now to repair that, because of the added square footage, is about $100,000 more. That's one reason. The other reason is, the other estimate was 9 months old. And so, prices have gone up since then. Now, the original construction estimate that we had gotten from the architect on the initial plan was $800,000. And so the county was going to do it for $550,000, which was still a savings of about $250,000. So we didn't get a revised cost estimate from the architect, but we can pretty much put the pencil to it, and it's higher than the $800,000 for the other two floors. In addition to that, we also have a copy of additional communication equipment that is going to be required by the district attorney's office. In total, between the communication cost and the increase in construction costs, we're looking at about a $200,000 increase. We've talked to the district attorney, and he's here, and I think he's willing to split that money if the court can come up with $100,000. And probably what we can do is have the county put up the additional $100,000 in the construction costs, and then the district attorney be responsible for the communication expenses.
The initial estimate didn't have any of the communications in it, which, I'm not sure why, but now that they've brought it to us, we don't have a problem picking up that because we're gonna be very picky as to what we want.
How much is it that you need from us?
I believe it's an extra 100,000 on the construction.
It's an increase of about 100,000.
Right.
Yeah,
One page to the other.
I guess my concern is, well, first of all, I think you need it. I mean, okay, but let's go to the money part and the timing of this. Do we have existing resources right now in this budget to come up with that money? Okay, the question number one. If we do, then we have to identify that and make sure that we haven't spent it or committed it someplace else. So, Javier, do we have some? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I need to, the revised amount includes the fourth floor.
Right.
The other way we were gonna do it did not include the fourth floor.
That's correct.
So it's not necessarily that it's an increase in cost, it's just an increase in how much, the scope of the work.
Right, it's a different.
Okay.
Because it takes
I just
care
wanna
of
make
both
sure that
floors.
we
Right.
got that in.
Right.
Okay.
And for some reason, they didn't include any of the communication, wiring, phone systems, anything like that when they brought the first proposal to Commissioners Court for the 554. So it's actually, the price has gone up 200, and so we're saying we'll pick up 100 of it if Commissioners Court can pick up the other 100 of it, because we
Well,
can.
but really, when you say we pick up, when saying you, are you talking about getting it from your Fund 90 money?
Yes.
Or what? Okay.
Yes, from the drug forfeiture fund.
Correct. Well, let me go back to that other question. Do we have somewhere a resource to do that? If we do not do that, if we do not have that, do you have an extra $100,000 from your drug forfeiture fund that you can lend the general fund with the commitment that when we go this budget year, we reimburse him that $100,000 for that? Now, if we have the money now that they say we can find it, then that, to me, that's not an issue then. But, or, the other option is, you know, Mando, can we continue with the process?
Right.
And just have on October 1st, we've got a work in process left of $100,000.
Yeah,
we can incorporate into the budget.
We can do that. We're very anxious to get the process moving, and I feel personally that if we delay it even more, the price will keep going up.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so, if it requires.
It'll be November again.
Right.
The whole year.
Right. And
So let me ask Javier first, I mean, do you have a source of funds where you can, you know, where you can capture 100,000 or whatever to do this? Or would you rather wait till the next fiscal year? to do this?
Well, if the court recall, when I guess the funding that was approved for this project was actually coming from the settlement proceeds in order to pay for this. Within the general fund, I don't have it identified. I honestly wasn't looking for the $100,000. I can do that if the court wants to, as the judge mentioned, have them loan it and then pay it back. You could do the same thing with the settlement proceeds. You know, in a couple of months' interest, you make up the $100,000 short.
Well, the problem is that if you do it, okay, so then you want to wait, yeah, but see, if it's not budgeted, then you're going to have to book it as a fund balance number, and I don't want to do that, because that's going to show that we've gone to fund balance for $100,000. I would much rather, you know, have the DA's office lend it to the general fund, and then you factor that into the 10-1 budget as an amount that we've already
to Fund 90.
Yeah, and you know, exactly, and that way we don't hit, I mean, it's the same dollars, but on the financials, it's gonna look like we dipped into fund balance by $100,000 to do this, and
You don't have any lab salary monies that could be swept?
Not to that amount.
That you know of?
I'm not sure.
I mean, Javier, could you look at that?
I'll look at that.
Because if there might be monies in your budget, Mr. Villalobos, that if, you know, we're coming towards the end of the year. And I know that we passed
going to roll into next fiscal year, regardless.
We passed a policy here saying that we would authorize the transfer of those lab salary monies for capital projects that would be one-time expenditures.
Yeah, the problem is that this project is not going to be completed within this fiscal year. It's going to roll into next year. I think
Yeah, but could you not set up a fund for it and just transfer the monies into it?
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's all that
Utilize
was.
those 400,000.
Yeah. It's easier to work when you have the money there than it is when you're looking for it.
And if we don't have the lap salaries, do you want the second option to be that we loan
You know,
it?
Right.
really, I think a lot of it is just a timing issue here, okay? So whatever is easier for, for the budget officer to do. I mean, if you start sweeping this money into a fund that we don't have, basically, you have to create another fund and transfer the lap salaries, basically, from that. It's just a paper entry that you're making anyway. You're not transferring dollars anywhere by doing that. But whatever's easier for you.
Yeah,
the point is
I
that,
need to work with the auditor's office because this is going to
and I don't know if you can
cross
even
fiscal
legally
years.
do that.
It was going to come into the general fund probably
We can sweep the.
from the
We have enough to carry to the next
settlement
fiscal year.
proceeds and to roll it forward.
How about if can you encumber, well, I was about, if you want to, Rob, if you want to encumber the funds at the end of the year, would that make any difference to you? Whatever, why don't y'all work it out, let's see whatever is easier. I think that, I don't want to delay the process, and we need to continue with it. So however you want to do it, it's all the same dollars, basically. If the DA wants to, expedite it and lend the money, and then we pay him back, those lap salaries that are left over are going to get swept into the next year anyway, into the fund balance anyway.
The important thing is for the project to get going, to get started.
Yeah, Marcelino is ready to commence with the third floor because they have permits.
So they're ready to go.
For the third floor.
Let me ask
The fourth
you,
floor, they should be pretty soon.
where is this in the renovations of the family law court where Judge Martinez is?
Yeah, that's an issue. I believe Marcelino's going to begin on the third floor, so they'll still be there for a while until they need to start demolishing or doing the demolition of the fourth floor. And at that time, where the family court is going to go is a question. And also the funding to renovate the second floor where they
I tell you what,
vacate.
we need to have those questions answered, because I will tell you that I believe the governor will be appointing 2 people before the end of the year. Okay? That's what I think he's going to do before the end of the year, because I think he believes he has to. So we got to look at that.
Yeah,
So we need to start looking at where we're going to house another district court. Well, one of them I thought was going to go in where the family court is now.
Well,
It was going to go to where,
they would go into the second floor of the judicial building where they're vacating.
Well, where's the family court, where Judge Martinez is right now?
They're taking over the fourth floor. That was approved,
Oh,
2 months ago, 3 months ago? The court approved.
Let me call him again. I mean,
Yeah, we're going to have to
slow it
find,
down.
2 courts in the judicial side, or somewhere else.
well, I hope to let you know within the next 30 days, because there may be some law that says, hey, he needs to do it before the next year.
But do we have the money for the second?
I'm sorry?
That
Do
hasn't
we
been
have the
allocated.
money allocated for, I thought he would do that, but only if
I don't.
the monies were available.
What
for it.
happened was, the way Representative Oliveira presented the bill was what we agreed to. And then somehow, when it went to the Senate side, it got all squirrely. So by the time it came out of the Senate, it was totally different than what Representative Oliveira represented. So it wasn't his fault. He did it the right way, but somebody in the Senate changed it. There is no family law court. It's one court is a general jurisdiction court, the other one is a criminal court. So the family court basically is out. So there's no language on the Senate side that said, focus, and that's going to have to be done as a gentle person's agreement amongst the district judges that they'll be sending X amount of cases over to that court. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. So that's where we are with that. But I was always under the impression that the family court where Judge Martinez was going to be the physical plant of where this new district court's going to be. So that's not the case.
That's not the
It's
case.
moving to the
That's where-
second floor where
Yeah.
DA's moving out of.
Well, then, I tell you, we need to either hire somebody or get somebody to start logistically trying to figure out where we're going to house 2 new district judges at a minimum, probably by January the 1st. And that's, let's forget about the money part for now. We can always figure that out. But it's the physical plant. Where are we going to physically place them once? That's
Do they
the challenge.
have to be in the court
I don't know.
house area?
Can they be in some other
Or can
area?
they be in another,
They can be another location.
they can be another location?
But I tell you what, logistically,
in
it's
the
going to be a
county
nightmare for them. It's going to affect you.
It has to be in Brownsville proper.
It's gotta be in
but it has to
Brownsville.
in the county seat, but it could be.
In a building in Brownsville?
Right, it could be auxiliary.
Well, but even if it is, logistically speaking, though, it's going to wreak havoc on you
Yeah.
because of your cases, district clerk. It's going to really kind of mess up
Either
some
that or
things.
do some very creative scheduling with the other judges,
Mhm.
where they could utilize some of the spaces.
Well, that's not going to, I don't
That's
think
not
that'll
gonna
work.
work.
That's not, some of these districts have become very proprietary, and they own the
Really?
courtroom.
Or we'll have a county visiting
You know.
judge, where you can.
But I have some thoughts maybe that I'll share with the court later, that we might want to do. Okay. So with this, can you work with, I guess with the auditor and work with the DA and with Pete and try to figure where we can find this money?
Okay.
I think the easiest thing, lend it to us, we'll pay you back and hope that we pay you back and,
I think we
will.
I'm pretty sure we have it in there. I don't have a problem with that.
okay.
In
Or
order to-
defer it till 10/1, and then we'll budget $100,000 for your completion.
I'd rather, there's 2 months that we would burn, I'd rather get going now.
Okay,
If we
that's
have
fine.
it,
Right.
I'd love
Get it done.
Because,
Get it going.
Get it done.
we're crammed in there and it's getting bad.
You got it, okay.
And the longer we wait,
Okay.
the bigger the problem with that judge situation's gonna get.
Yep.
We could vacate and you could have the space.
Okay.
Anything else, Mando?
That's it.
Do I,
So the motion has to read differently.
well, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't we can table it for a week and then come back with how
The
we're
right
going to do
wording.
this? Okay? Why don't we do that? Do I hear a motion to table?
Motion to table?
Moved by Commissioner
Second.
Tamayo, second by Commissioner Benavides to table item 20. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Discussion and possible action to designate use of funds for application to section 381.004.
Good idea. This is good.
Judge and Commissioners, last week, the court instructed that I bring this item back to you. As you know, the item requires that we designate a use for the funds, and the court had indicated that if any member of the court had any other additional projects, that they contact me. The only proposal that I got, full proposal that I got, was from one that had been discussed last week. It is from the Juvenile Probation Department.
You got no other?
No other.
Okay, that's
I think
fine.
that's
Do
excellent.
Do I hear a motion to
So moved.
approve the use of these funds and allocate them to the Juvenile Probation Department? Moved by Commissioner Tamayo, second by Commissioner Benavides. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Thank you, Frank. Item 23, discussion possible, last item, discussion and possible action regarding the county's federal legislative agenda. We had a good week last week, Dave.
Judge, you wanna,
No, you go ahead.
Judge, Commissioners, just wanna update you, we sent a memo earlier last week. Last week we learned that we had, received some early funding in the Senate, Transportation Appropriations Bill. Now, this is not a done deal, but it's a good sign and it's a step in the right direction. Basically, so far we've received, about $1.8 million in this particular bill. There'll still have to be a, House version and then a conference committee to make sure that we keep those funding levels at what they're at right now. And what we got was $750,000 for the US upgrades from Harlingen to I-37 in Corpus. We received $500,000 for the construction of the Los Fresnos Boys and Girls Club. We received $1 million for the FM 509 extension in Harlingen, San Benito area, and $600,000 for the East Loop project in Brownsville. So, in addition to that, we were at a meeting last week in Austin with TxDOT Aviation. We're working on our county airport. As most of you all know, it needs some major improvements. We're in line to receive in the next 2 years $1.8 million for improvements to the airport. The first monies will come in '08. I believe it's about $180,000. And then the following year, it's $1 million, $1.8 million, somewhere around there. So, all in all, we're probably going to receive close to $5 million if everything works out. You know, we still need to go back to Washington later in the year, probably in October, so to make sure that our funding, you know, remains at those levels and continue to push the House and the rest of the delegation on our agenda.
Worthwhile trip?
Good trip. Well, that's both.
That's great.
Yeah.
Both of them, yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about the veterans issue that, you know, you had a trip to Washington and then a follow-up visit by Senator
No, I
Cornyn.
think that the veterans issue really was a result of you know, I think I told you all that we had met with the other county judges back early on, maybe in January, and I think that's really where it all got started. You know, there's coalitions that were built amongst all the veterans groups, all the South Texas county judges. You know, when we went up to D.C. for the second time, it was one of the issues that we spoke about, and really, you know, this is something that's been in the work in the House for quite some time, but nobody on the Senate side really wanted to take it. Hutchison and Cornyn took it, and I think it's going to be a good thing. It's still a long ways away, but it's another step that hopefully at some point we'll get to a true VA hospital in the Valley. So, you know, thanks to our local legislative body and our federal on the congressional side and the federal side. Okay, Pete, what? One more thing?
It also appears that the President of Mexico is going to fund the West Rail project on the Mexican side, and I think they're going to break it over a 2-year period, so.
Do you want to mention the other one, or you don't want to do that just yet, what the governor wants?
Yeah, we met with Governor Perry last week, went over a couple of the projects that the RMA and the county, the different cities are working on. Obviously, top priority is US 77, and I think we're getting pretty close to being where we want to be, which is, you know, maybe some type of announcement that, you know, we will be getting an interstate corridor to the lower Rio Grande Valley. We talked to the governor about the East Loop project and the importance of that project to the county, to the Port of Brownsville, and to the city of Brownsville. And, you know, we talked about some needs that we have from the governor's office to be able to make that project a reality. We talked about the FM 509 project in the Harlingen-San Benito area and how that ties to the Free Trade Bridge, how it ties to the Port of Harlingen and the industrial area by the airport in Harlingen, and we talked about what we needed, you know, from his office on that project. We talked about the North Rail relocation project and tied that into the overall rail consolidation plan that the county has for the entire county. We reminded the governor that, you know, last year about around this time, he had given us $13 million for the West Rail project that closed the funding gap that we had, and we told him we had phase 1 of the North Rail project funded, which is a relocation of the switch yard, and that we needed help in funding the next phase, which is the actual relocation of the rail itself around the urban areas in Harlingen and San Benito. So he assigned one of his staff person to work with us, and we're going to do that. We talked, one of the projects that he took a lot of interest in was the Second Causeway project. And we talked about how that could benefit, you know, Cameron County, the entire region, And so we're going to develop a plan of action and see if there's a way that we can fast-track that project. And we're talking about, from the point where we're at today, developing a project development plan to the time we can clear the project environmentally. We've got our consultants, our general engineering consultant for the RMA, working on that already. We're hoping that in the next 2 weeks or so, we can go back to the governor's staff and present that plan to them, and see if there's any additional funding resources that the RMA is going to need to be able to carry that plan forward. So I think we're in excellent shape. We just need to follow up on the different projects and make sure we follow our project schedule.
Very good.
It was a good week.
We need to send you back to Washington, Judge.
Thank you, guys. Do I hear a motion to acknowledge Mr. Sepulveda and Mr. Garcia's report? So moved. Moved by
Second.
Commissioner Gatsa, second by Commissioner Tamayo. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Tamayo, second by Commissioner Benavides. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries, and God save this honorable court.